Good evening, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to tonight's Mindset Monday call. I'm probably going to launch into opportunity mode at some point because I've been doing so many opportunity calls. I feel like, oh, this is something completely different. So I've either been doing opportunity calls or starter calls for about 4 days now, non-stop. So this is nice to come and do something a little bit different. So welcome to those of you who are new on the call, have never done Mindset Monday before. You're very welcome to the call. We do this every Monday at 9 o'clock. And send a little message out to your team if they are normally on the call. There's a lot going on at the minute. I appreciate that with the sign up reduction fee or the practically free sign up, and loads of people really like in their inbox and helping people get started and everything. So I think, but at the same time, it's probably even more important when all that is going on to keep your mindset right, to keep your mindset strong. So John and I wanted to make sure that we still kept these calls going every week when everything else is going on at the same time, because your mindset is so important and how you think. And actually, it's been a really good exercise for me as well. I don't know about you, John, but and some of you guys, but it forced me to kind of do some personal development in amongst all the crazy this week. Like I was like, oh, I really need to go and listen to that podcast again and properly make some notes and stuff. So very important to take that bit of time out to kind of seek out like that bit of personal development knowledge. So this podcast this week, was Robin Sharma. So let me know in the chat, did you listen to the podcast and what did you think of it? Did you like it? What was your favorite takeout? What can you remember about it? I'm going to share a couple of takeouts from my perspective and why I loved it, but I love to hear from you guys as well. Lots of food for thought, Natalie, absolutely. I have the book as well. It's actually in my office and my husband's in there doing a podcast at the minute, but it's the book is really good. I would definitely recommend, if you enjoyed the podcast, to get the book. It's very, very good. It's a very easy read. They're like 2-page chapters, right up my alley. Really short little chapters. It's very, very good. Lots of food for thought in the book as well. I love Robin Sharma anyway. As I said, like the couple of the podcasts we've had before have been very kind of high impact, kind of high energy, kind of aggressive almost vibe, if you like, very masculine energy. Whereas with this one, I find with Robin Sharma, he's just very knowledgeable, very wise, kind of really clever. Like a lot of what he says, I'm like, oh, he's very clever. I love the way he just has this memory for quotes and books that he's read, and such said this and such said that, and he never ever, this is like something that I've taken out of listening to a lot of his stuff, he never passes anything off as his own. Like if he uses somebody else's content or somebody else's thoughts or whatever, he always says like where he got the quote from, and he remembers the book that he read it in. So he's obviously got like a high level intelligence for that kind of thing as well. I can't really remember where I heard anything ever. Somebody said something once and I kind of go, that was a good one, and I'll pinch it. So some of this stuff about being an inner hero, I think, is very good for a lot of us to hear, a lot of us to plug into. So if you haven't listened to the podcast yet, go and back and listen to it. Yes, Paula, I feel exactly the same about Ed Milet as well. I do find he's quite hard to listen to as an interviewer, but he's very successful and he gets some fantastic guests, but yeah, interrupts a lot. If you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. And I think John's got a podcast for this week, which is a bit shorter. Actually, we had a couple of quite long podcasts, but John said he's got one for you guys. It's maybe a little bit, 20 minutes, half an hour one this week. So here were my takeouts. Keep putting your takeouts in the chat and we'll go and have a look at it as well. But I loved all the stuff. I love the concept of everyday hero. I love the concept of the whole thing. And I think in this day and age, especially for those of us with children or who are around, you know, teenagers or young children, ideology and looking up to people because they're famous or whatever is so prevalent in our society right now that I think people, I want us to remember that we're surrounded by people who live an everyday hero life, right? Not just, I mean, we'll come to each of us individually in a second, but I think for me, that's something that I often try, and there's nothing wrong with having heroes, like admiring famous people or whatever, and the two of them talked a lot about famous people they knew, sports people, business people, all these kind of more well-known heroes, if you like, and this kind of hero idea. But you want to be your own hero, don't you? I want to be my kids, you'd probably laugh at me if they could hear me now, but I want to be my kids' hero. I want to be the person that they look up to. I want to be the person that sets the example for them about being the kind of person that they want to be, living the kind of life that they want to live, right? So when they talk about having so many heroes all around us, like just taking that bit of time and effort to recognize the everyday heroes around us in our own lives can actually make you really aware of other people, being aware of the people around us. And I love the bits where they talked about how you do something isn't really as important as why you're doing it. It's something we talk about a lot in this business, and for those of you that are newer, you'll hear us talk about your why and the why are you showing up and why did you get on this call. And because in our business, everything is voluntary. Every call you do, every conversation you have, everything you do, you've got no boss. So everything you do within your business here is optional. So the philosophy, when he talked about your philosophy as your mountaintop, then the how isn't important, it's the why you do it. Understanding why you're doing this business is going to be the reason that you keep showing up. It's going to be the reason that you get on the call tonight, the reason that you're introducing people to the business, the reason that you do all of the things that you do. And if you don't have a reason for why you do it, it's too easy not to do it, whatever the thing might be, right? If you're going to the gym just to get abs, right, or whatever it might be, you've got to really want the thing. Most people, it's usually something bigger than that. It'll be like to run a marathon or to get fitter or to get healthier or to train for something in specific. And because when you've got a bigger reason than just one small thing, the why becomes the most important thing. So I love the whole conversation where they talked about that. The other thing that really was loud and clear for me was about a couple of other things, actually. One of them was about the sense of entitlement that the people in the world have right now. And I thought that was a really interesting thing, that they talked about people giving away their power to their circumstances. I think that was the way that they put it. People give away, if you have a victim mentality, you give away your power to your circumstances. And the successful people and the people who are heroes in their own lives don't depend on the world to give them a living, to give them meaning. And making a difference in your own life or other people's lives, that's really heroic. So what does he mean? What did I think he meant like that? So many people, and it might be some of you guys, it might have been me at one point or another, we are victims, or we make ourselves victims of our own circumstances, or blaming, you know, the blame game where it's everybody else's fault. He made me like this, she made me like that, everything's his fault. If it wasn't for the kids, if it wasn't for my partner, if it wasn't for my ex, if it wasn't for my boss, if it wasn't for this, that and the other, you know, and I hear it all the time. The kind of blame game, like we're in the situation that we're in and it's somebody else's fault. And the thing that I don't like about that is that exactly what they said on there, which is that gives all of your power of your circumstances to somebody else to manage. Right? So blaming somebody else means that you have no control over your own situation. Whereas when we take responsibility for where we're at, so if you take the business, for example, if you take responsibility for where your business is at the moment, or for where your life is at, or your fitness is at, or your health is at, when you take responsibility for that, rather than going, oh, well, I couldn't get to the gym because, and I can't eat healthy because, and I can't do this because, you know, and I can't build my business because, can you just shut that door for me? I think both the dogs are in now. Can't do this because, or whatever. When you take responsibility for that, then you have all the power. So there's an awful lot of self-responsibility in an awful lot of power being able to say that I am responsible for where I am, so therefore I'm responsible for what happens next. And honestly, that change in my mindset that I made a number of years ago probably was one of the biggest things that set me free in my life. Was never, I'll say never because no one's perfect, right? But really consciously trying not to blame anybody else for any situation that I might be in. That's not to say that there aren't outside influences, because we all have those, but it's how we respond to them that like matters. It indicates where we are, and I love having the power over that, the power to be able to change my future, the power to be able to change our situation. So that was a big one for me. The other one as well that they talked about is, let me just find it, I'll fast forward a little bit through some of these notes that I made. Yeah, talking about the quote that they used was, tragedy will crack your ego open. So they talked a lot about ego, right, in the sort of middle part of the podcast. And he said, and his actual words were, pain is a purifier. If you stay in the pain, his recommendation was stay in the pain and it will navigate your tragedy. You'll learn how to deal with it. So then any of you who have ever had, and it's most people, right, have ever had anything difficult, a difficult time, a tragedy of any description, or have ever had any kind of ego, and ego comes from, like, it's a small e, but it's not always about you know, being arrogant. Some people put ego with arrogance. I don't think it's that. I think it's even people who say they've got no self-confidence and stuff sometimes, or worry all the time about what other people think. There's a little bit of ego in there, right? Isn't there? If you're worrying about what other people think, you think they're thinking about you, right? So you might think, I haven't got an ego. I'm like, I'm down here and I'm not really confident and therefore I've got no ego. I actually think it's the opposite is true. That if we are worrying what the world thinks about us, what our friends think, what our neighbours think, what the town thinks, what, you know, like what everybody thinks about us, to the point where it's stopping us from doing something, stopping you from sharing the business, because what will people think of me? There's a little bit of ego in there, right? And if you can squash the ego and get rid of the ego, you'll be much better at sharing the business. You'll be much better at talking to people. You'll be much more confident at sharing the opportunity, sharing the product, because it isn't about you. And we talked a lot about this on last week's Mindset Monday as well. When you have a mission, when you're mission driven, when you actually want to do this for other people, and Ed Milet always talks about this a lot, about serving other people and taking your pain and using it to serve other people, then it doesn't become about you, and then your ego gets much, much smaller because it isn't about you anymore. And this is part of why we do these Mindset Monday things, why personal development is so important, because you have to kind of learn that. Because the other stuff that they talked about that I loved, I don't know about you, John, was when they talked about, what he said, you're born a hero and you're programmed into average. Isn't that true? I'm always talking about that with schools. My daughter is 15 and at high school now, and I hear that the way, I mean, yeah, she's a good school and I'm happy with it and everything, but I hear that the way that they try and make everybody conform to this kind of way of being and this kind of way of thinking. And if, you know, she's quite ambitious and she's quite outgoing and she's quite outspoken, imagine, don't know where she gets that from. She's quite outspoken, she'll stand her ground, she'll speak her mind, and schools don't really like that. They're like, oh, so they're constantly trying to clip her wings a little bit. And I can see what's happening there. And it's all about being programmed into being average to suit the working lifestyle, to suit like being told what to do by somebody else when you leave there, to have doubt and fear and disbelief. And I love the fact that they just unpack that and go, well, that's shite, right? Because I don't want to be programmed like that. But as adults, we have to unpick all of that and be aware that the things that we say and the things that we are accidentally programming into our own children as well, if we're not careful. So there was a whole piece around that I loved, but the tragedy will crack your ego open, I thought was really interesting. And staying in the pain, because I've got one more after this and then I'll hand over to you, John. We've got a tendency, or I did anyway, a tendency to try and avoid pain. It's human instinct, isn't it? If it's good, like, you know, don't put your hand in the fire because it'll hurt, right? And don't face into things because it'll hurt. Don't have the conversation because it'll hurt. Don't. But actually, when you're going through a tough time, whatever it might be, if you can sit in the pain, I think I talked about this on a call the other day, that it was on the Friday night call when we did that, and that your pain will be somebody else's instruction manual. They put it a slightly different way in the podcast, but it's the same idea, is that everything you learn by going through the thing that you're going through, if you can sit in it and learn from it, it's going to be the thing that actually becomes somebody else's instruction manual. So I loved all of that stuff. And I think it's really important to understand that every lesson is a blessing in a way, if you approach it in the right way. So a couple of last things for me before I hand you on to John as well. One was a real lesson around learn to let go. That is something that I think is incredibly important in your life, to learn to let go of the things that aren't serving you and really don't matter. Like John and I both had a deal at the start of this year that we're not getting involved in drama, right? In other people's drama and our own drama or anything. So we're like responsible with each other to call each other out on it, right? If you're getting dragged down into that alleyway of dealing with this, that and the other, this person said that, and like whatever it might be. Just said this year has got to be about building our businesses, focusing on what's happening. And actually what's happened is now when this £1 sign up thing has come along and the free thing and everything, we're so focused already that it's just flipped, it's just clicked right in because we haven't got involved in any kind of drama. We're just learning to let go of the stuff that doesn't matter. And it doesn't mean it doesn't matter to the person whose drama it is, but if there's a saying, isn't there, not my circus, not my monkeys. I can't remember who said it, but it's really true. Right, so that learning to let go of stuff, just let it be. I have this little voice in my head, and I'm sure Alex used to have it written or tattooed on the inside of his arm, something like that. You might remember better what it was, or on the inside of his arm. I think it was let it be or let it go or something like that. He had it there, and for me, that learning to let go of things that aren't important, or even used to be important but aren't important more. If they're not serving you, if the conversation isn't serving you, if the thought process isn't serving you, if the situation isn't serving, just learn to let it go and just relax about it. And you just have this sense of peace that kind of descends on your life, so that when you feel like that, I don't know if you agree, John, I do know you agree actually, you see opportunity a lot more. You see possibility a lot more, don't you? If you are open, and the noise of the things around you, the news, the everything that's going on in the outside world, when you quieten down that, the volume of the opportunities, the volume of positivity, the volume of the good stuff is so much, you're just more aware of it. It's like someone takes the blinkers off and you see all of this other stuff because you're not focusing on anything over there. So that was a really big thing for me. And then the final one before I hand on to you was about the whole bit around death, and don't postpone living because you're afraid of dying. Like, it's really true. And I think actually it's actually 30 years ago this weekend since I lost my dad, and I was 16, and I think that had a transformational, well, I know it had a transformational effect on me as a person, because a lot of people, he died very suddenly, he wasn't ill, not that it makes any difference, the end result is the same, but it was a very sudden for me as a 16-year-old. 1 minute he was there and I went out, and the next minute he was gone. And it was just before I did my GCSEs, February half term, and I was working in a swimming pool and as a lifeguard, and my mum came, he was meant to come and get me and he didn't turn up, and my mum came instead. And it was like, I remember it all very clearly, and it had a really profound effect on my, like, from that moment forward. It's like, I was talking to my son the other day and I said, everything's a little bit like, in fact it was my daughter, and I said, everything's kind of before my dad died and after my dad died. It's like BC but BD, right? For me, like, everything's like, there was this part of my life and then I became different. But what the effect that has had on me, I think, is similar to what they were talking about, which is that I'm not afraid of that happening to me, but what I am afraid of is not making the most of the life that I've got. It makes you very, and I'm sure a lot of you have been through similar things, right? It makes you very aware of any kind of time wasting, any kind of just pointless stuff that, like, you just feel like, well, I don't want to spend my energy there, I don't want to spend my time there, because I don't know, like, how much time I've got left. So it's not living in a morbid way, it's actually living in a very positive way where you don't get dragged into stuff like that. So I took something that was a terrible time in my life, but I tried to make it into something really positive. Do you know what I mean? So I'm always thinking, well, there's no point in getting dragged into that because it doesn't really matter, and there's no point in worrying about things I can't change because it doesn't really matter. I want to live a really good life in the time that I've got. I hope it'll be lived to like 150, but you know, either way, I want it to be really good quality time. So I think that part of it was really profound for me, and making sure that the time we're here is the time that we're here, we're making the most of it. So there was a lot in there. That was some of the things that I took out from that, along with shining a light on people's talents. I think that's something we do very well in this business. Anyway, enough from me, I'll hand on to you.
Amazing, I love it, Emma. Thank you for sharing that. And it's funny, you've gone through quite a few of my points. I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to only make 3 notes. I'm going to write 3 key things down from it. And then I got to 3 and then I heard something else and I was like, oh, that's too good to not write down. I know, I'll write 5 key things down, and then got to 5, and then there's about 20 things that I've written down, but I'll just go through them briefly. And I think what I always try and do when I listen to podcasts or personal development or anything like that, any lessons, I always try and spin it into how does that relate to the Juice Plus business. So the first thing that I got was right at the beginning when he said people are addicted to like this thing, everything's got to be bigger and better, and you know, it's about meeting a billionaire. Everyone gets excited by all this big stuff. And I think when you link that to our business, sometimes having that vision of PMD Plus is amazing. But actually what we should be doing is helping people get what they really want, which is maybe just covering that £200 a month rent bill, or that, you know, it was great on the call today, mentioning about the car went in for an MOT. I think it was Becky that said it. The car went in for an MOT, and then I found out that it needed all this stuff doing. So these, like, they are big, but they're little life-changing things that can happen on a day-to-day, on a monthly basis. And I think sometimes we get wrapped up in, you know, I've got to recruit 10,000 people frontline, when really you just need 5 good people. You've seen the power of numbers. Focus on 5 good people. Just focus on your first good person. I remember getting, you know, really sort of, my belief went through the roof when I found my first person that actually wanted to do this. So my advice is like, keep working until you find that one really good person who wants to run with it as much as you. Because I think this whole big thing, you know, you've got to be a millionaire from this business and you've got to have 20,000 team members all over the world and all that kind of stuff. It's great having a vision, but actually getting that first little promotion. You know, a new girl that's just joined my team messaged me, said, I've got my first order. That's as important as getting the PMD plus. Because if you don't get your first order, then you can't get to NMD, you can't get to PMD plus. So it all adds up in that sense. And that relates to the next point, that everybody has a role and everyone can be a hero. And that's the same within your organization. You might have somebody that puts on one customer a month, but they always show up on calls. They're always at events. They're playing their role in the team as much as somebody else that's putting on 20 orders a month. So I love that one. Everyone in your organization has a role in your team. And, you know, we've all got some amazing personalities in our teams, guys. And you've got some people that you can speak to and they're really good listeners and they give you great advice. There's some people that you hardly ever speak to, but they're always on the leaderboard. They're always putting orders on. So everyone's got their own role to play and are all part of the team. That was the next point, making a difference in their own way, you know, making it. And we've got people like, I love that about I think it was the lollipop lady and the pizza maker and, you know, just people going about their own daily business with their own why. Heart set emotion. I love that line. Our businesses, we're here to change lives. That is what we do. And we help people get what they want. And I think when you go in for, when it's in your head, you're going for your promotion. When it's in your heart, you're trying to help somebody else get where they want to be. So that's what it really meant to me, is when you're really heart driven, you're actually focusing on helping other people get where they want to be. And, you know, a lot of the time, especially with the big waves that we've had in this business, and I can see us, you know, we're going to have a monster year. And I guarantee the reason we will do that is because we will be leading with a servant's heart, going out there. Who can we help with this opportunity? Who can we help with this product? And you almost forget about your own goals and end up achieving them, thinking, wow, how did this happen? Because you were so focused on helping other people get where they wanted to be, your goals naturally just occurred. Building it on love as well. That was one thing that we really, really powerful at and great at in this business. It's so much more than, you know, stats and figures and pay line and new orders. It is built on love. There is a lot of love in this organization. There's a lot of love in this team. There's a lot of conversations that have absolutely nothing to do with the business, but they have everything to do with the friendship. And you learn about people. And that's why it's so important when you get to these events and you get to know people and you build those solid relationships. Emma touched on it brilliantly. Is ego stopping you worrying? Is ego stopping you and you're worrying about, I can't even read me writing here. Worrying about you've got to go to the people, so you're not serving. So is ego stopping you from serving other people? And that was that's so key, because I think throughout our whole lives, we're always told that someone with a big ego is someone who's boastful, is cocky, is always showing off. But actually, ego is really what you let yourself get in the way of yourself by worrying about what other people think. So I'm not going to send that message in case they say no. I'm not going to send that message because I'm worried about what they think about me. That is ego. I'm not going to put my hand up at the event to share my story because I'm worried about what I look like. That's ego. It's crazy when you think about it that way. So really flip your thinking on ego isn't. And there's an amazing book called Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. That book is life-changing, and it talks a lot about how the ego works in different ways. And I've underlined the voice of fear because that's what ego is. Which leads on to the next point. So many people, and it's about the death kind of thing, going through life, missing out on an amazing life because of fear of rejection. You know, I was scared so I didn't do it. Absolutely crazy, right? I mean, you're not going to do it perfectly every time. Like Emma, we mentioned this on Friday when I initially told Emma about the business. It was the worst pitch ever, but it was still a pitch. I still asked the question. I still invited her to have a look. So do it badly if you have to, right? It's better to do it badly than not do it at all. If you're doing your first Facebook post, if you're doing your first messaging stuff, just go for it and you'll learn how to do it as you go along. You know, if I meet somebody else now that I think is amazing at the business, my pitch is so much better. I've got so much more belief, but it's just getting started. And I was scared, believe it or not, of approaching Emma about it because she had a nice car, she had a great job. I did worry, what's she going to think of me? Is she thinking that I'm pitching her when I'm meant to be a trainer? You know, all these thoughts went through my head, but I didn't let that fear of rejection get in the way, or the fear or the ego of worrying about what someone thought. Again, another one that we've covered the same thing, but build people up, shine a light on people's talents. I mean, that is the key thing that we do in this business. We literally build people up like never before. And you mentioned school and normal jobs. And honestly, I think the majority of that is they knock you down. They're trying to put you down. They're trying to put you in a place because they're scared of you outgrowing them, or scared of you outgrowing that area. Whereas in this business, all we want to do, we don't want to clip people's wings. We give people the wings. They're like, here's how to use your wings, get flying. Do you know what I mean? And I love that. I remember saying on stage a few times, like I've never had anybody, a role model, that believed in me unconditionally. Like my mum and dad, obviously your mum and dad believe in you, but there's a fear attached to it a lot of the times. Well, there was with my parents anyway. They were scared about me doing stuff. So when I was working this business, you know, thank God we've got Zoom now, because if it was a free sign up, we'd probably be doing events up and down the country, all over the place. But we were doing events Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, and then weekend events. And I remember my mum saying to me, I'm worried about you. You're doing all these events. You're not getting anything out of this. It's not going anywhere. I was probably making like £80 a month at the time. She says, is it really worth it? And she shouldn't have really said that to me. What she should have been saying was, wow, it's amazing that you're working so hard. I'm super proud of you. It's all going to come good for you, son. But her fear was trying to get in my way. Her fear of me thinking I was wasting my time. And we got to be careful when we're having those conversations with people. If someone says, hey, I'm going to do it this year, this is my year, hey, I believe in you, let me know if I can help you. So that was what Alex was great at for me. He never once put me down. All he ever did was build me up. You can do it. You're going to do this, you're going to do that. And it's an amazing way to live your life, to tell somebody and to show them and believe in them and shine that light on them until they believe it in themselves. You know, we say sometimes people in this business believe in you more than you believe in yourselves at times. The other bit that he mentioned, I'm nearly done. So people are obsessed with the three FFA, he called it, fame, fortune, and applause, when really the key to living that life that you really want to live is joy, peace, and freedom. And I've been on both sides of it as well, because there is a bit of you that loves the applause and the fortune, and, you know, all right, it's you know, you're in the juice plus bubble, but there is a bit of fame that comes with it when you're on stage and you get your certificate and people want to meet you at the end. But actually, the real key point of this business is the joy that you get from doing it, the peace that you can live with, and the freedom that you get is so, so incredible. I mean, and that is what we should be teaching people to look for in life, that joy, that peace, that freedom. The 8 forms of wealth, money is only one of them. And then it's quite interesting because he mentioned the words upgrade your life. And I think that's what we do. We help people upgrade their life. We help them upgrade their health. We help them upgrade their wealth. We help them upgrade their freedom. If you just go out there with the mindset, I'm just going to help one person per day to upgrade their life. Just one. Just try for one person a day. You can do more if you want to, of course you can, but one person a day minimum, I'm going to help them upgrade their life. And again, that's serving other people. You'll get where you want to be. And then the other two really was And this relates to where we're at right now, this 10-week period to get this momentum. Are we being busy or are we being productive? Really good question to ask yourself when your head hits the pillow that night. Have I been busy this day or have I been productive? There's a big difference. And are you just moving or are you making an impact? Because you can sometimes just go through the whole day and you think, oh, I've been really, really busy. Busy ain't always good, right? Productive is good. There's some other key parts in there. I think there was a lot that what comes from Robin Sharma is he's really nailed down this recover to perform. So where he says he goes away and he takes vacations and I think he said something about going out on like walks without his phone, and he just like zones into the universe and fills his cup back up so he can be more productive later on. So there's a lot to be said for that as well. But yeah, really loved it. Honestly, Emma, it was brilliant. I could listen to it again and again and again. And I'm going to get into more Robin Sharma's stuff because he's got that bit of a Jim Rohn, but a younger, more modern version, I would say. He's like just so wise, so intelligent. There's no hype there. It's just really, really hit at you on a level where you just absorb it like a sponge. So yeah, absolutely loved it.
I've listened to that I think that was when I first started doing 75 hard last year, and I was listening to a podcast every day. That was the first one that I listened to.
Wow.
And I've listened to it 2 or 3 times since then, and I think it's a bit like the Jim Rohn thing. Every time you listen to it, you get something different out of it. It's just so I would definitely have it in your, like, stick it in the notes on your phone so you can find it next time you just want to listen to something. And also I've recommended it to so many people since then. You know, when people have said, have you got a good podcast I can listen to? Not just people in the business, but like my sister and friends outside of the business and stuff. It's just a good thing. And I love the bit about being your own hero. So I think it's really important to recognize hero in other people. And I love that part. One of the things, I've been doing this business 10 years today, and one of the things that stands out to me more than anything in any other company I've ever worked in, any other environment I've ever spent any time in, is in this environment, we shine a light on people that sometimes they've never had a light shone on them. They've never knew they had any talent. They never knew, or nobody ever tried to find what they were good at. Nobody ever asked them what they were good at. Nobody ever said, like, what's your skill? And I would really encourage you to, when you're doing coaching calls with your team, or when you, like, whether you've got one team member or no team members or whatever, as you start building, have that conversation with somebody, like, what are you good at? And because if you can pick what you're good at, and I think we covered this on another call, and find out what someone's good at and get them to be really good at it. Like, if they're good at listening, great. This is a great listening business. If you're good at talking, great. Go live on your Facebook. If you like, whatever, find the thing but really shining a light on people and putting that kind of lighting a fire under somebody, when they get their first order, like really shining a light on them, doing some recognition, posting on their Facebook. Like, don't we all love a Facebook post with recognition on it? Like, it's fab. I remember when I first started getting recognition for like clubs and stuff, I was like moving all the kids' swimming certificates off. I'm like, Mum's got her certificates on the fridge. And just like having a light shone on you and shining a light on other people is something that we do in the Juice Plus company better than I think anybody does, because you can't move forward without helping other people to move forward. And because of that culture, it's just such a lovely place to be every day, isn't it? I love being here in this community every day because it is like that. So find the light in other people, find the hero in other people, but also in yourself. So I said this at Liverpool. If you wanna show your team, your kids, your partner, your family, if you want to show them that you want them to do something with their life, you've got to show people that you're doing something with yours. And that's not about necessarily getting to PMD plus, but that's about getting up and working on your business, having that sense of like getting yourself organized and saying, this is my business and this is our future and this is what I'm doing. And I'm going to speak on a call and I'm going to speak on stage and I'm going to get a certificate for senior partner or whatever. But if I want my children to stand up and be heard, I've got to stand up and be heard first. I've got to be their hero. I've got to be their voice. I've got to be the person that they want to grow up and be like. So I might not be, Mother Teresa or a hero in that respect. I'm not going to, I've not saved anybody from a burning building or whatever. But if we can be a hero just in our own family, a hero in our own team, like a hero to somebody else, like, isn't that an amazing thing to have said that you are, or just for somebody else to say about you? So that's kind of something that I always have in my head. And then I think that to wrap it up, just taking control of your past and using it to build your future. And that is part of being a hero in your own life, a hero in somebody else's life, a hero for yourself. And don't be scared. It's a great word. Have it on your vision board, right? I want to be a hero. I want to be a hero, whatever that means to you. And it'll be conversational point, like say, ask your kids who their heroes are, right? And ask them why. Why do you look up to that person? What have they done? What have they, and it could be, what about, and then you start seeing these conversations, right? And then they start thinking better earlier than I did in my 30s. They start thinking more like in their 15s and 16s and 20s. What about the grave digger? What about the person who works long hours here, there and everywhere, and noticing the heroes in our own community? Okay, so that is it from us today. John, do you want to talk us through what the next podcast is? I'm going to have a quick look at the chat.
Yes, the podcast is about mindset, time management. It's only a short one. I'm just looking for it now, but I can't find it. So I will put it in the group ASAP. This guy, you might not have heard of him before, but he's an ex-personal trainer, built a phenomenal business. I used to listen to him years ago. His business was called Fit Body Boot Camp. And he's made millions and millions, built an incredible life for himself. But he was actually an immigrant that came over from Armenia, couldn't even speak English, moved to America and turned just a really challenging situation into a phenomenal business. But there's some really good hacks on there. And it's something that you listen to and think, right, I'm going to start doing this and I'm going to start doing that. And one of the things is like win in the morning and you will win the day. So hopefully this podcast will help people get a little bit more organized, a little bit more focused, win that morning and you win the day. So I'll get it uploaded into the group for you ASAP. Thanks again, Emma, and we will see you all on tomorrow's calls, 10:30.
Thank you so much. Thanks, guys, and thanks for all the comments. I've had a quick look through all of them. I really appreciate you participating, and yeah, I'll see you all probably in the morning or definitely here next week. Bye for now. Thanks, John.